Let me bring Darren in. Darren, are you there now?
Yes.
Thank goodness. Thank you for putting up with this. I don't know what happened to the phone system, but first of all, tell me what the U.S. Institute of Peace is. I've never even heard of it.
That is a fantastic question, and I'll try to give the abbreviated answer because I know we don't have several hours this time.
I know.
But U.S. Institute of Peace is one lesser known but quite important member of the NGO archipelago that was created in the 80s. It belongs to the same cohort as National Endowment for Democracy and some other better known NGOs that really in the broad context of things and in kind of the sweep of things was created as a kind of reorganization of the government structure in the aftermath of the Church Pike Committee hearings that exposed a lot of the dirty dealings of government agencies such as the CIA. And so sort of a broader response to that government-wide was to create this NGO layer of governance with an arm's distance, plausible deniability, a kind of chameleon character of not exactly being government, not exactly being private, in order to fulfill some of those more sensitive functions that had been exposed in the course of the church hearings. And so U.S. Institute of Peace is one of those NGOs that had a particular focus on conflict regions. But of course, as I think you suggested earlier, peace requires at the very least an asterisk because they're involved in a lot of things that conventionally, according to I think most American citizens would not think should belong as part of the portfolio of something calling itself an Institute of Peace.
So what was the thing with the with this Taliban member that was getting money from us?
Right. So this is an interesting case. So there was a whole saga of a takeover of the U.S. Institute of Peace under DOGE, and that's really a fascinating story unto itself. Just to give you a sense of what these characters were like, they barricaded themselves in the offices. They sabotaged the physical infrastructure of the building. There were reports of there being loaded guns within offices. There was one hostage situation where they held a security guard under basically kind of a false imprisonment type situation. It was extremely intense, far more so than the better known story of USAID. And in the course of all of that, they tried to delete a terabyte of data of accounting information that would indicate what kind of stuff they were up to, what kind of people they were paying. And in the course of that, DOGE found that one of the people on their payroll was this curious figure who had a prominent role in the Taliban government and then seemed to kind of play a bunch of angles across each other, sort of one of these fixer types in the middle of Afghanistan. The question is, what the heck is an organization like this doing, having an individual who is a former Taliban member on their payroll? It just underscores how incredibly bizarre the whole arrangement is. And just to reinforce that, I think what's even more bizarre than having this former Taliban guy on the payroll is the kind of schizophrenic posture in relation to Afghanistan exhibited by the U.S. Institute of Peace. One truly bizarre thing is that one of the U.S. Institute of Peace's main kind of policy agendas was basically lamenting the fact that the opium trade had dissipated under Taliban leadership. They had multiple reports coming out basically saying this is horrible that the that the opium trade has diminished under the Taliban. We need to find some way to restore it. How bizarre is that?
What was their thinking?
Well, it's very strange, and it depends, what kind of rabbit holes we want to go down. But the whole story of opium in Afghanistan and its connection to government entities is a very intricate and delicate and fascinating one, but it seems very clear that the U.S. Institute of Peace was involved in that story to some degree, because their public reports, they had like a full-time guy on this beat of basically lamenting the fact that the opium trade had dissipated under the Taliban, and meanwhile they're funding this former Taliban guy.
Unbelievable. Now, ProPublica got this, and you guys released a statement on it, and ProPublica just completely whitewashed this, said this guy was a victim and his family is taken hostage. Was his family ever taken hostage because he was exposed? And correct the ProPublica story, would you?
Well, yeah. The ProPublica thing, as usual and as expected, was a total joke. I mean, this guy, I'm not an expert on this particular person's history, but what's very clear is he was a former Taliban guy, and he was probably one of these people who was playing all sides, made a lot of enemies. I know that there were, several kind of attempts on his life by the Taliban in the course of various decades. This has nothing to do with DOGE. I mean, he's a known quantity in a region and somebody who's made a lot of enemies, and he was on the payroll of U.S. Institute of Peace, and nobody's expecting something like that. U.S. Institute of Peace goes in, and again, there's this sort of hostile takeover situation where the people are barricading themselves in, trying to delete all this data, and then sure enough, what's in the data? It's stuff like this. These random former Taliban guys, making, I think his contract was $130,000.
This is the real deep state stuff that I think bothers people so much. Look, we expect our CIA to do stuff. We don't necessarily want it to do it, but we expect it. But when it's in the State Department, when it's in every department is pushing out money to NGOs to overthrow governments and everything else, it's out of control. It's completely out of control. And who is overseeing all of that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, again, part of the NGO layer structure, this was, USIP was almost a cutout of a cutout. A fourth of its money actually came from USAID. So in many ways, it was a cutout of USAID, which is itself a cutout. So there are many kind of layers of distance, plausible deniability. And USIP, I think, institutionally really perfected this chameleon structure of being able to plausibly present itself as government when that was convenient for what they were doing, and also to present itself as a private organization when that was convenient. It's a very intricate setup that they had that was truly optimized for this chameleon character of plausible, deniable operations in conflict zones, doing God knows what with American taxpayers' money. And it's just an absolute hornet's nest. We have recovered that terabytes that they tried to delete. And once we get things settled in the building itself, I intend to do a kind of transparency effort whereby release all of this material to the public. Just as I'm doing at the State Department. So I'm concurrently acting under Secretary of the State Department and doing a transparency effort here. After I eliminated the Global Engagement Center, which was sort of the internal censorship office within the State Department, decided we got to air this out to the public. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll have our first tranche of hundreds of thousands of emails documenting what they were doing.
I would love to have you back on to go through some of those emails. I think you guys in the State Department are doing an amazing job. Thanks for being on.